Hey there! Welcome to my PowerPoint presentation on Tuffnut, Bumbling Hulkster, a hero for Rokers. Tuffnut, Bumbling Hulkster, who I call Nutter Butters or simply The Nut, is a revered brute hero, introduced in Super Slam. He is one of two heroes in CC who does not have 4 intellect. Instead, he only has 3 intellect, the only hero currently in CC with less than 4 intellect. He does have the normal 40 life though. His intellect is what balances his hero ability, which is actually fairly strong and comes in 2 parts. The first part says, instant, tap him. Pitch the top card of your deck. If it is Savage, if it has 6 or more power, the crowd cheers you. This synergizes with the second part of his hero ability. Whenever the crowd cheers you, create a toughness token. His ability is really cool and worth talking about separately. No sense in getting to the climax right away though. Unlike RKO, Tuffnut's status as a revered hero is nice for him, but doesn't heavily impact how he plays. Instead, he looks to utilize the toughness he creates, as well as the most efficient weapon in the game to pound his opponents into the dirt. I was going to talk a little bit about Tuffnut's lore, but he doesn't have much. All he has is 3 paragraphs. But in investigating those 3 paragraphs, I learned a lot about general brute lore. I want to shout out Saint Havoc for enlightening me. His channel is linked in a card and in the description below. Anyway, Tuffnut came from a very peaceful birthing midden. For those at home who do not know what a midden is, it is effectively a garbage dump used by communities in lieu of, waste collection. Something I did not know until this video is that brutes are apparently a condition and not a race. Brutes use the bodies of their slain enemies to perform the carrion rite, which births new brutes from the carcasses of slain enemies. Absolutely incredible lore SS. Love it. Brute Necro, please, would be amazing. Getting back to Nutters, he's not here to kill people. He's just around to wrestle with his new friends. The problem is, he is significantly larger and more powerful, and ultimately kills a number of them by accident. This has earned him the adoration of the deathmatch crowd, which has caused him to learn a little bit of what he calls human tongue. Now, maybe this is common knowledge to the people watching this video, but I was unaware Savage Lands brutes could not speak, which brings so much more flavor to cards like Arc Smash and Sand Sketch Plan. Oh my god. All of this comes together to make Tuffnut a well-meaning but ultimately lethal foe. Now this is normally where I'd stop and talk about his hero ability, but everything he does synergizes with everything else in the deck. So I'll just talk about the synergies instead. The first synergy I want to discuss is toughness tokens. Each toughness token adds 1 defense to the first action defended with on your opponent's turn. This buff stacks, so 2 toughness add 2 block to the first action, so on and so forth. Keep in mind, this only applies to the first action you block with, regardless of how many toughness tokens there are. This allows Tuffnut to cover breakpoints from other heroes with a single card, and to even go above and beyond covering just a 4 power breakpoint with a single card. This helps him negate the downside of only having 3 intellect, and can create some truly staggering block values. I've seen the Nut block for 15 with 3 cards, and no armor. Speaking of armor, I want to talk about 2 of Tuffnut's pieces of equipment. The first is Gauntlets of Tyrannical Rex. Because the Nut often has a Savage card in pitch, if he ever has an extra resource, he can activate the Gauntlets of Tyrannical Rex to get even more value on his turns. And he often can. The second piece of equipment I want to talk about, and what everyone was excited for, is Rock. Rock was printed in Dynasty, with a few other weapons meant to add unique weapon designs to a variety of classes. It's a 2-handed brute weapon that costs 3 to attack for 7, and its damage can't be prevented. This is the most efficient weapon in the game, and it's not even close. However, it comes with a strict downside. You can only attack with Rock if you have no cards in hand. Until Tuffnut, utilizing Rock was something that could be done maybe a few times a game, and at the cost of heavily altering deck composition. However, since the Nutters can pitch from the top of his deck without having cards in hand, he can attack with Rock pretty much every turn. The ability to attack for 7 every turn gives Tuffnut such incredible inevitability and value. I've started a Patreon for those who want to join. I'm never going to paywall my content, so you don't have to worry about that. It's simply a Patreon for those who want to support and allow me to expand what it is I'm doing. It'll give you access to the ability to vote on longer form content, starting in September, plus access to submitting videos for VOD reviews, and shoutouts of my videos. All the tiers get the same perks, and the lowest is $3. In the vein of expanding what I'm doing, at 20 Patreon subscribers, I'll start streaming some Talishar and maybe video creation. You can find my Patreon at patreon.com/hereticfab and in the description. I'm also still supported by Majestic Arena, since it's still my LGS, and he's still supporting our local community with an incredible place to play. We actually had our first skirmish there, and a great time was had by all. Check him out at Transient TCG on Discord or TCG Player, or soonly enough at majesticarena.com. I want to thank him for his continued support of our local community and my channel. Now let's edge a little closer to the heart of the hero. Tuffnut's hero ability of pitching the top card of his deck imposes certain constraints on the way his deck is constructed. Like almost every other brute, Tuffnut wants a critical mass of Savage cards. Not only does he want those cards for intra-deck synergies, but Tuffnut also relies on generating toughness tokens to keep his defensive value up. He only gets those toughness tokens if his ability hits a Savage card, and not if the ability just edges a card with 5 or less power. This means that the average power of Tuffnut's cards is much closer to 6 than many other heroes, and allows him to take good advantage of Clash cards. Clash cards in Tuffnut's list serve two purposes. The first purpose is to take advantage of the high average power of Tuffnut's cards. Blocking with a Vigorous or Tough Smash-Up usually gets an additional point of value from the block. Vigor is actually very important for him, since it means he only has to pitch a yellow from the top of his deck to swing Rock. The second purpose of Smash-Up cards in Tuffnut is to allow for top-of-the-deck manipulation. Since Rock requires 3 resources, if you know you'll need a yellow or blue on your turn, you can use the Smash-Ups to manipulate the top of your deck and sink the red you just won the clash with, instead of being forced to pitch it. With all this in mind, how does the Nut win? He actually has 2 primary routes to victory. The first route is through absurd value generation. Every toughness token he generates is 1 extra value, and over an entire game he can generate upwards of 20 value from toughness tokens alone. He then combines all of the defensive value generated by his toughness with a rock attack every turn to obliterate other decks focused on value generation. He actually does a very good job of fatiguing fatigue decks. The first reason for this is all of the value generation I talked about. The second reason is because he can only use 3 cards a turn. Other heroes are trading value with him using 4-card hands. Every time they block with 4 cards and he only blocks with 3, his opponent loses a card in the exchange. You do this enough times, you're going to end up with cards in deck when your opponent doesn't. The other way he wins is by remembering that he's a brute. He still has access to all of the powerful brute go-again attacks, and can follow them up with Rock. Augmenting this offensive power is all of the toughness he creates, plus the truly absurd fridge brutes possess. Instead of using his defensive prowess to be purely defensive, he can use it to just blunt his opponent's return fire while pummeling them into oblivion. I wrote a little bit about hero design in Flesh and Blood. Feel free to pause the video and give it a read if you like. So, how would one beat such a loving and lovable soul? Well, you utter monster. There are a few ways. The first is by playing at reaction speed. In order for Tuffnut to save a D-react for Arsenal, he can't attack with Rock on that turn. On top of that, his deck building constraints mean that he wants to run the absolute minimum number of yellows and blues that aren't Savage, and D-reacts surprisingly aren't good enough to make the cut. Finally, reacts aren't buffed by toughness, which makes them just not really play with his general game plan at all. This all means that he has to decide how he wants to block during the declare blocker step, and reacts can punish this heavily. If you can set him up to decide which chain link you're going to react to, you can put him in a position where there's no correct answer. You just react on whichever link he doesn't heavily block. Another way to beat him down is to send a bunch of smaller chain links. Since toughness is consumed on the first blocking action, sending an attack for 1 to 3 wastes the toughness completely if he were to block with a card from hand. Tuffnut is therefore disincentivized from committing the toughness block on a weaker attack, especially against decks that are known to send breakpoint attacks later on in the chain. The last way to defeat this nice, loving creature is to leave him with cards in hand. If you can leak damage while leaving cards in his hand, he's often forced to roll Scabskin Leathers to clear his whole hand. Even if he doesn't roll Scabbies, the attack he sends from his hand is going to be lower in power than Rock. But I'm sure you don't care about any of this, since you're not an utter monster. In conclusion, Tuffnut is a rocking deck, and you should absolutely play it. The expansion slot being used for interesting designs is something I love about the game. Seeing cards which create new avenues of play for any given class is very, very cool, and I look forward to what LSS throws in them going forward. Good fun, and have luck in your next game.